Okay, great. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar focused around Unilever Prestige supply chain planning journey with Oracle and Trinamix. My name is Bobby Shome, and I'm VP of Europe at Trinamix. Trinamix is a specialist Oracle implementation partner focused on supply chain and end-to-end implementations of Oracle cloud solutions. We're a global organization with over 1,200 employees and over 400 clients. For our webinar today, we're really excited to have Gabriela Costilla, VP Supply Chain Strategy at Unilever Prestige, Dan Haller, SVP North America Applications Ecosystem Development at Oracle, Daniel Bakker, Senior Director Product Strategy for Fusion SCM, and Sanjay Agarwal, VP at Trinamix and lead for Trinamix CPG Retail Practice. We'll have a Q&A at the end, but feel free to push that little Q&A button at the bottom of the screen during the presentation, and we'll monitor that and get to as many questions as we can at the end. This webinar is also being recorded, and the link will be provided to all attendees at the end. Okay, so it's great pleasure. I'd like to introduce and have our panelists introduce themselves briefly. So I'll start off with Gabriela. Please, would you introduce yourself? Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Gabriela Costilla. I am the supply chain strategy lead for both planning as well as logistics for Unilever's Prestige division. I have been with Prestige for 3 years, and before this, I did 10 years of various planning roles with another Unilever acquisition brand. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Gabriela. Can I ask Dan to introduce himself?
Yeah, so hi, Dan Haller. I run the ecosystem development for North American Applications. Been with Oracle in 2 stints over 20 years. And ecosystem is basically our inbound, outbound marketing, our alliances and channels organization, as well as our application ISVs and application solutions that we put on the Oracle Marketplace. And Trinamix has put a number of solutions on the Oracle Marketplace. So if you want to see those, you can go to Oracle Marketplace and type in Trinamix, and you'll see some of the solutions that they have in supply chain and other areas. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, Dan. Really appreciate it. Daniel, could I ask you to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Bobby. Good afternoon, morning, evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm Daniel Bahar. I'm with Product Strategy for Supply Chain and Fusion SCM. I'm a senior director here running enablement for the organization for both the partner community as well as our internal Oracle audience. So great to be here.
Thanks, Daniel. And Sanjay, could I ask you to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, thank you, Bobby. This is Sanjay Agarwal here. I'm a VP at Trinamix in sales and delivery area. I've been in Oracle ecosystem for about 25 years now. In the first prior 15 years on Oracle on-prem and last 10 years in Oracle Cloud. I'm based out of Bay Area, and good to talk to you all here.
Great. Thank you, panelists, for your introduction. So in this webinar, we're going to focus our discussion on how Unilever Prestige deployed Oracle supply chain planning cloud applications to transform the management of their operations. Through this session, we'll have a fireside chat between our panelists to understand Unilever Prestige's business drivers, a deep dive into the highlights of the solution implemented, and also present some of the benefits of the engagement. So, without further ado, let's learn more about Unilever Prestige's journey and their experience. So I'm going to hand over to Dan, who's going to conduct the chat with the panelists. Over to you, Dan.
Great. Thank you, Bobby. So first of all, Gabrielle, thank you so much for taking the time. I love when we do partner and customer sessions like this, where we just get to learn so much about what our customers are doing with the technology. So, but before we get into that, can you just kind of share a little bit about Unilever Prestige, who the company is and what you guys focus on?
Yes, absolutely, Dan. I'm definitely excited to share our journey, but also if any of this advice helps somebody else who's considering going on the journey, then that makes me happy. Unilever Prestige is a collection of 10 brands, all luxury beauty brands that are within the overall Unilever umbrella. We're about 1.6 billion in turnover. We have a fast-growing portfolio. And about half of our sales are via online channels. Within our operating model, since these are all acquisition brands, it is a decentralized model. It's brand first. We're really looking to protect, that kind of special secret sauce that each of these brand propositions have, which means that each of these businesses are standalone businesses that leverage the resources of Unilever while maintaining that startup style agility. Versus mass, we do have, price-driven scarcity. Our products are a little bit expensive, so that does mean we're looking at smaller batch runs. We've got some very niche, very special ingredients that go into our products, and of course, those take a little bit longer to manufacture. We've got niche channels as well. So versus our Unilever mass business, we're selling into channels such as professional spas or hair salons, which are definitely, much smaller, almost similar to a direct-to-consumer experience. We've got a lot of global formulas, again, because of those small batches. And we've got SPFs and supplements as well that require, very strict shelf life considerations for the consumer safety. Within my role, I support these 10 brands in developing some capabilities cross-brand, and initiatives like that include Oracle Planning Cloud and our implementation journey.
Wow, that's great. Now, so you've got a lot of complexity, but what were some of the business drivers that made you go on this journey to look for a cloud solution to solve some of the business problems you were facing?
Yeah, sure. So each of these brands was in a different stage of maturity when we acquired them. For the most part, we were in Excel spreadsheets. So we, acquired a brand and they've got an amazing, massive spreadsheet that their amazing planners have been able to create. And while Excel is great, it wasn't necessarily suitable to the scale and to the speed of growth that the brands were experiencing. So to give you a couple of examples of, what were some of those limitations for us, we were not doing a proper MRP for a lot of the brands. So we were buying in kits instead of based on longest lead time and, kind of exception based. We were forecasting on a single line for a SKU, average movements. Again, I'm probably giving the more extreme examples, right? We did have some brands and tools, but when we think about those extremes and where we've come from, developing a channel forecast, developing an assumptions-based building block forecast for consensus planning. These were all things that we wanted to be able to achieve. We also, kind of with a newer brand, they weren't necessarily, having to go through the complexities of SKU changes and BOM revisions that, come along over time. So those were all things we were looking to be able to better manage in a system. And of course, the business continuity impact of having a system and being able to train that out to future planners and have that archive of history for everything that's been done before. So we were really shopping to alleviate planner time through automation. We wanted process enhancements. So obviously statistical forecasting was something that's a little bit harder to execute in an Excel tool. And then we wanted something that was scalable. So how could we support this growth across our multi-ERP brand ecosystem?
So you've got, go ahead.
Yeah. And I was going to say, ultimately we were trying to improve the maturity of that planning process from Excel to something that was future fit for us.
Yeah, which is quite a task when you're talking about you've got 10 brands, you've got, coming from legacy systems, coming from spreadsheets, and now you're trying to bring all of that together into a consistent planning process for all of your planners. So I'm curious, what were some of the challenges you faced during implementation and after go live?
Yep. So I think the first few considerations of implementation are that they are a lot of work. Even if you've got the best division and you've got a legacy tool that you can kind of model off of, it is definitely a lot of work. So making sure that we had the team that, was freed up enough, but still familiar enough with the day-to-day job to be able to do the design and the implementation. I think that's something that was very, very important to us. I think one of the other challenges is, clarity of objectives, right? So we go in and we we have a plan. We want to be able to think about demand planning and supply planning from a best practice perspective. But of course, it's easy to fall back on old habits with those amazing Excel spreadsheets, right? And we have to really ground ourselves to remember we're not just trying to replicate our current process in a fancy tool. We're actually trying to build out that future state process where we don't always have to mirror everything that we had before. So finding the right balance of what was amazing and what do we need to take forward versus what did we have before that might have been a crutch that we don't need anymore because now we have a statistical forecast, or because now we're able to do exception-based planning in supply. So really thinking through those considerations within the design, we're definitely a challenge to try and keep us grounded, but definitely something that helped. Change management was the other big one. So we did our first 4 brands as a big bang rollout, and then we've had 1 to 2 brands each year after that. I think that really helped from a collaboration perspective at the beginning, but based on where each of those other brands were with their ERP journey and, the changes that were happening on the team, we allowed them to, definitely take the space and the time to do this right. But with that change, of course, it is a big change, and, user adoption is a challenge, especially, when we've got, someone who's there and then they take on a new role, we bring someone else in, the training wasn't fully complete. So I would definitely say that user adoption is something that we've consistently had to work at during each of these implementations. I think that has made, partnerships with Oracle and our Trinamix implementation partner so important as well, because we've been able to, build out the training documents and leverage you guys as resources to help our planners really kind of move through that change a little bit easier. Another challenge that we had was integration issues. Sometimes we'd put customizations inside the integration versus inside the ERP queries versus inside of Oracle Planning Cloud. And I think as some of those business requirements changed early on, we'd need to really rely on solid documentation for where those were, so that as we're making changes, there weren't impacts down the line. So I think that was one complexity that took us a little bit of getting used to. And with that, a planner is not going to use the tool if they don't trust the data. So making sure that we prioritized those and the data that goes into the system was so important. I would say, overall, the most important challenge that we consistently watch is the data accuracy and the data quality. Because again, if the planners don't trust it, they're not going to use the tool.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, when you think about data, and in the age of AI, the importance of clean, accurate data. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit later about some of the AI that we're trying to drive, but that data, I totally agree, is 100% the key in these type of programs. Now, I do want to shift a little bit because we've got the customer perspective. Now, I want to get a little bit of the implementation partner perspective on change management, user adoption, integration issues. So, Sanjay, similar question to you. What were some of the challenges that you saw from an implementation partner in driving this implementation across the 10 different brands?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thanks, Dan. Great question. As Gabriela mentioned, there are 10 different brands, right? So the biggest challenge was to get all the different brands within the same cloud instance. So basically, what we have today is we have one cloud instance, and there are several brands that are on the same instance. And essentially what is important, what is unique is all these brands are kind of independent BUs, business units. So basically we have to make sure that the data security is built in the process. So that is one of the big challenges that we had, one of the big unique things. And the other things, as you can imagine, there are 10 different brands, there are different ERPs. For example, some of the brands have NetSuite, some of the brands have JDE, some of the brands have EBS. So there are 3 different ERPs that we are bringing the data into cloud. So that's another unique aspect, and that goes to prove that Oracle Cloud Planning System is platform agnostic. We can get the data from multiple systems, and not only diverse, you can bring in at the same time as well. For example, here in this case, we are bringing data from JDE, NetSuite, and EBS as well. And the system can bring in data from other source system as well. And the other thing that I wanted to mention was we consciously from a strategy perspective, we wanted to consciously bring or implement the newer functionality. As we all know that Oracle, when it applies upgrade every quarter, newer features and functionality come in. So newer functionality like super session, like for example, hyper tuning, for example, ABP, all those are newer functionality. And as we are implementing newer brands, we are actually incorporating those newer functionality. So we are kind of improving our solution and as we go along.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, I do want to mention that if any individuals in the audience would like to ask questions of the panelists, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. Sanjay, that's just the fact that you're connecting to 3 different ERPs, 1 in the cloud in NetSuite and 2 on-premise in EBS and JD Edwards, consolidating 10 brands into one solution. I got to go back to Gabrielle and I got to ask the question. So you had to have obviously explored multiple software partners for this task. Why did you choose Oracle?
Yeah, we did. So we explored a few other partners, and I think ultimately for what we were trying to achieve, which was this, multi-ERP into a single instance that could be supported by a managed service partner. A lot of the brands already had familiarity with Oracle product, right? We've all got the Oracle ERPs, and a few of them had some of the other on-premise planning solutions, such as Demantra and ASCP. So it made it a little bit of an easier transition and an easier decision for us to move forward with Oracle.
Oh, that's great. Now, supply chain planning is one part of the Oracle supply chain management platform. So Daniel, can you kind of talk a little bit about the whole portfolio and how supply chain, planning fits into that, and then also, maybe even expand on what Sanjay talked about the, bringing in multiple different systems, and it's kind of a best-in-class solution that can work across multiple different agnostic solutions.
Absolutely, yes, and great comments, Sanjay, Gabriella. I was listening to the automation piece, and it really got my attention because in today's fast-paced environments that we live, one of the key things we're trying to always provide customers with is better tools so they can accelerate productivity and focus on the things that matter. And that's one of the key things that we deliver in supply chain planning, and it's actually part of our overall strategy into automate everything that we could possibly can, always with abilities to allow us to intervene should we need it, as a line of business user or an executive, however the scenario may be. So yeah, supply chain planning is definitely a big area of our portfolio, but it's certainly not the entire portfolio. We do have a full-blown suite of supply chain and manufacturing applications, and they're all in the cloud, just like supply chain planning. We go to market with essentially 6 product family areas. These are all part of the suite itself, and the beauty of it is that they're fully integrated. So today you may be in supply chain planning only, but actually one of the biggest differentiators on supply chain planning and other planning companies out there is the ability to fully integrate planning and execution. And that's just on planning on itself. But that being said, we do have a portfolio of product life cycle management, of supply chain planning, of course, of procurement, supply chain execution. These are all the manufacturing, maintenance, inventory, costing, everything related to core manufacturing execution. All the order management capabilities, whether it's order management itself, order pricing, global order promising, also connected into planning, by the way. And then last but definitely not least, all the logistics products, whether it's transportation management, warehouse management, global trade, which has big trends nowadays, and a lot of use cases. And finally, logistics network modeling. So needless to say, we go deep into each area of the supply chain, but we're also covering the supply chain as a whole.
So Daniel, interesting. A question just came up in the Q&A chat. I wanted because you just mentioned logistics, and so how has Oracle improved the logistics and distribution efficiency? And have you seen reductions in transportation costs, lead times, or inventory management, or order fulfillment time? Can you maybe talk a little bit about
Yeah, great
yeah.
question. So how we've improved? Well, logistics, transportation management specifically has been, I want to say, the most awarded transportation software solution in the market,
Mhm.
being a leader, an absolute leader on both axes, for over 17 years, I believe, according to Gartner. It's a position that it's like that champion saying, it's hard to become a champion, it's even harder to stay a champion. It's a very thorough process, and we deliver this through a lot of innovation, a lot of collaboration with our customers, and a lot of new capabilities. When it comes to the question per se, we recently launched a predict order route capability, just to give you one example. And this allows to apply machine learning into this, taking into account historical information and events. So we're constantly evaluating whether it's upcoming innovation, existing innovation, how to incorporate this as part of the product itself, and how it integrates with the suite as a whole.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Sanjay, I know you answered the question in the chat about the integration tooling that you use, but do you want to just kind of briefly touch on that? Because I think, bringing together three different types of ERPs, 10 different companies, I think that's really a key point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what we did was we used Oracle Integration Cloud for making that integration happen. And the good thing about Oracle Integration Cloud is it's become very robust these days. Last 3, 4 years, I've been seeing a lot of customers that actually have started to use OIC. And it has a lot of good functionality about notifications and such, so that we get immediate notification if there are any failures or any issues that happen. Long story short, basically we used OIC as an integration tool.
That's great. So I do want to get back to Gabriella because Daniel talked a little bit about accelerating productivity. And obviously the reason why you do projects like this is you want to try to drive some benefits and you want to try to help the planner community, obviously. So Gabrielle, can you talk a little bit about some of the benefits that were achieved and how you did help that planner community?
Yep. So earlier I talked about some of the capabilities that we were shopping for and what some of those planner unlocks were. But in addition to that, we also had some tangibles that we were after that I'll talk about right now. So we wanted to see forecast quality improvement. We talked about the planner time on task that we wanted to alleviate. And then we also wanted to see an improvement in our inventory and business waste reduction. So we were able to tighten up our forecast bias from plus minus 20 to plus minus 10. That is the primary metric that we use within Unilever and Unilever Prestige. We were able to reduce our inventory days on hand by 10%. Now, this wasn't necessarily just because we got an amazing planning tool, right? This was a combination of system and strategy, but I think that the delivery of that strategy was made possible by the tools that we were able to use to execute that. And then we've also been able to better develop our community of practice. So I do think that there's something very powerful in the opportunity to, call up your colleague from Dermalogica and say, hey, is it just me, or do you have a better way of working this problem? Like, am I the only one who hasn't been able to make this work? How are you guys doing it? I think that our planners have been able to leverage each other as resources for how they can build out better forecasts. I think it's still, despite having started this journey in 2019, I do still think that we've got a long way to go to further build that out, but we are well on our way to building out a solid community and making sure that the planners have the ability to move around inside of our brands, right? As well. I think that's kind of where we're hoping to end up.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I love this slide. It talks about the benefits, each brand unifying the community. So Daniel, question for you. So we have a lot of customers now taking on supply chain planning. I love that you talked about the Oracle Transportation Management solution as well, because it's a great solution that also is best in class. But how are our customers? Can you talk about maybe how some other customers are achieving great results with the supply chain planning?
Absolutely. So yeah, and Gabriela shared many good examples that, frankly, we've seen these across other organizations and other industries as well. So, it tells us that it doesn't only apply for one particular use case, it also applies for multiple ones. I want to say one of the main areas is the data consolidation. Again, I mentioned here on Unilever's case, the fact that we can help with aggregating and providing, as cliche as it sounds, a single source of truth for your balance and demand and supply needs, or for supply chain decision making. But it's easier said than done, and we've delivered this with many use cases across a wide array of industries. That's one area. The other area is really around all the innovation that comes in. So we segment these into a few buckets, essentially, whether it's on decision intelligence, leveraging AI and machine learning. And these could be machine learning and artificial intelligence capabilities that the user interacts as a line of business user, or some of them happen behind the scenes, such as what Gabriela mentioned on leveraging algorithms, whether it's multiple types of statistical forecast methods, down to bringing external machine learning models in the system. The demand planner per se may not necessarily understand what's the difference between one or the other, but they can certainly trust the fact that we're picking up the best algorithms according to that particular use case. Um, that's another area on AI and ML. And of course, as we are all very familiar with the ongoing trend of leveraging generative AI. So within Gen AI, we've advanced significantly over the past 4 to 6 releases, I want to say. And up to 2 years ago, no one even talked about Gen AI. You can fast forward to today's environment across the entire suite and in supply chain planning specifically as well. There are many examples, and by many I mean over 100 examples of Gen AI in the SCM suite. Just on this new wave of agentic AI with all the AI agents, we actually just delivered an AI agent in supply chain planning, which facilitates on a balance in demand and supply on and the extended trading partner community. So today, using supply chain collaboration in planning, a user can actually understand and ask an agent what are the policies related to a given supplier, and if they what are the thresholds of overcommitting and undercommitting. That's one example. And we continue to advance, and that's the beauty of being in the cloud. And Gabriela will attest to that as well, is that we get new innovation to customers every single quarter, and they choose to incorporate them as the time fits for them. So it's all available. We do have 4 releases a year, and we call this almost a compound effect of innovation, because we're certainly not stopping in terms of exploring more Gen AI capabilities.
So Daniel, I
Thanks,
know
Dan.
that, go ahead, Gabrielle, because I know Gabrielle had some questions about that and how you can find that information. So Gabrielle, go ahead and ask Daniel those questions.
I got a couple more questions just building on the AI comments, Daniel.
Sure.
So, as a customer, we're always exploring AI. Of course, it is very new. There's lots of cool solutions out there, and almost too many. But can you tell me a little bit more about, the ones that you've just mentioned? How do they fit into the Oracle roadmap? What's there now? What's coming soon? And I'm also curious to know what else you guys are working on to stay a leader in the supply chain planning tool space.
Absolutely, yeah, and I'll piggyback on the transportation comment. Staying a leader remain is one objective, of course, but our core objective is to make sure that we're delivering the right innovation to our customers. Becoming a leader becomes an effect of that result. So making our customers successful is our absolute main objective. We do that within a wide array of capabilities, of course. Now, just to stay on the AI topic here, so I kind of alluded to this new AI agent in supply chain planning. So this was just delivered right now as of the latest release on 25A. And it's an advisor, essentially. It's a supply chain collaboration policy advisor. So, and this could apply in many use cases, but in this particular case, you can imagine a scenario where a user has little to no interaction into all the policies of the wide array of suppliers that a company holds. In your case, obviously over 10 brands, many suppliers, so it's an N-tier system almost. for a planner, for her or him to be able to consult these and at the right time and help make the right decisions is something that sometimes is a big constraint. So what we've launched as of 25A is the Supply Chain Collaboration Policy Advisor, which consults all this documentation and gives the planner immediate answers without having to flip a single page or to open in a single PDF or even try to identify where that information is in the system. And you can ask specific questions such as, what are the penalties? What are the approval procedures? Are there any other details I should be aware before I set up that supplier to overcommit for something, just as one example. So you'll see a lot of these use cases, whether it's summarizing information for planning purposes, whether it's actually generating information as well. So one new feature that's coming right now on our next release of 25B, and that's for the first week of April, essentially, we'll have in planning what we call the Planning Notes Authoring Assistant. So this is also an area where we see planners spending a lot of their time, trying to document things, taking information from files that were exported, perhaps in Excel or, text notes and so forth. And a lot of it resides already in the system. So doing that whole data mining and then creating some sort of a summary for a report or for an S&OP meeting, whatever the scenario may be, becomes something that we can consolidate quickly and within a click, really an actual click of what we call an AI assist in the system. You can take all the information related to that summary essentially, and it will generate a text and augmented it as well. So it standardizes all rough entry notes. It makes it easier for planners, other planners in the system, global organizations such as yours to read and comprehend things, and a big time saver. So, no longer, manual inputs on things, but yes, relying on information that's already available. So just a couple of examples.
And thank you. I know I probably should have been aware, but I wasn't aware that we were going to get some of that with 25A. So thanks for the heads up, Sanjay. Let's start working on that.
That's great.
That's fantastic. So Daniel, I mean, there's a lot of this information in Cloud Customer Connect where customers can go and see the latest and greatest and see the 100 AI agents and AI features. Like where can they go, individuals like Gabrielle that are trying to figure out where they can use more and do more?
Absolutely. Yeah.
About that.
The biggest resource for customers would be within the Help Center of Oracle. Hopefully, you're all familiar with these. I'll see if I can add a link to the meeting chat here, perhaps. But the Help Center, if you simply search for Oracle Help Center, you'll see it. You can use the search, by the way, very similar to how the search works within our products. So you can simply search for, supply chain AI agents or supply SCM Gen AI. It will pick up the term and it will give you exactly in which products it's available. That's one area. And then, yes, you mentioned Cloud Customer Connect, and we do have a wide array of events upcoming, pre-recorded, a lot of forums. They're active forums. If you're not a customer that's active in the community, definitely follow those pages because it gives you the ability to receive the digest via email of all upcoming events. And then, yeah, for documentation, the Help Center.
It's fantastic. Well, I do want to turn things back over to Bobby. Thank you, Gabrielle and Daniel and Sanjay for the fireside chat. It was just enjoyable for me to listen. Anytime you can get a customer on a webinar and do a call like this with the complexity of your deployment is just a testament to the great work that Unilever Prestige and Trinamix did with the help from Oracle. So thank you so much. And Bobby, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks very much, Dan. Really appreciate it. Fascinating listening into the discussion here. So again, thank you, Gabrielle and Daniel and Sanjay for that. Gabrielle, as we kind of move towards the end of this webinar, I've got a question, a couple of questions for you. I think the first one I wanted to ask you was, your experience with working with Oracle and Trinamix during your implementation in terms of, what worked well, what you're looking to do going forward.
Yeah, sure. So I think, we've done 4 implementations with Trinamix now. I've personally been a part of 6 or 7 of our implementations across the brands. And I would say, you know, they've gone pretty smoothly with Trinamix. You know, ultimately, I think the thing that matters most is that you have confidence that your implementation partner knows the solution, but equally important is really the people that become a part of your team during that implementation. So I think we've been pretty happy with the work that Sanjay and the rest of his team have done for us. It's also been pretty smooth handover into managed services as well once that implementation is done. So we are using you guys for kind of day-to-day support, help desk, anything from, you know, I think I might have broke it. What do I do, to, hey, can you, you know, help me train a new planner? And I think that's been pretty good. The only thing I will say that we're definitely still trying to work on with you guys, and this is just as much an us workflow as anything else, is we want to make sure that, you know, our planners, even though we've got this, you know, crutch to lean on for anything and everything that we could possibly need, that we're also still balancing their own personal, you know, planner enablement as well, for making them feel like they can handle some of the small things on their own, and they don't always have to, you know, reach out. So I think balancing where those responsibilities lie is definitely something that we still want to, you know, continue to improve as we move forward on our journey.
That's fantastic, everyone. And I think I also want to follow up on that point, potentially with you and Sanjay, in that, you know, the way Unilever Prestige is set up, you know, in terms of different geographic regions, how did that affect both the implementation and the way you managed, how you talked about sort of change management? Gabriella and Sanjay, please.
Yeah, so I think, you know, in the US, it's a bit easier for the change management piece, right? The majority of our resources, the Trinamix resources, were here. When we moved into, you know, implementations in the UK and China, as an example, I will just say, you know, it kind of hurt me personally more than anyone else. I think from the Trinamix side, you guys had, you know, offshore resources. I couldn't tell the difference between offshore, onshore on a couple of the implementations. So, you know, I wouldn't say that our planners were necessarily impacted. I think they still were probably just as supported as our US planning team.
Excellent.
Yeah, and
Bobby,
change management is a huge part, as you rightly mentioned, right? So on certain brands, we have seen that the planners come in and go out. So we try to mitigate that issue of the change management by creating good documentations and the training materials.
Excellent. So time's coming up, but there's a couple of questions here on the chat. I think this one's directed at you, Gabriella. So the question is, how does Unilever Prestige balance sustainability initiatives with operational cost optimization in its supply chain?
It's a great question, and I won't necessarily try and answer the whole thing. I'll stick to the planning piece of it. So we are a very, very waste conscious business, and I think where we're looking to consistently improve is in managing our inventory into a lean space so that we don't have that excess. I think we're also, you know, trying to be conscious of our MOQs. As I mentioned at the beginning, we do have, you know, smaller batches because it is more exclusive product. So we are consistently trying to be conscious and order the right amount whenever we make these planning decisions.
Excellent, thank you. And I know that, as I say, we're coming towards the end of the time. So what's next for Gabriella and Unilever Prestige? What have you got at the back of your mind? I know you've alluded to it in a couple of your questions, but have you got anything sort of concrete for the future?
You know, right now our plan is to continue to bring brands into our Oracle Planning Cloud instance. We do still have a couple, such as the newer brand K18 that was just acquired this last year. We want to bring those last brands into the system so that we've got one solid planning foundation. And then we're also looking to continue improving on our existing brands. So as you guys mentioned, there's new developments with AI. We want to make sure that we're bringing those types of enhancements, as well as some of the newer features that we launched in our latest implementations, back to those original brands. so that they're always feeling a little bit of something new. I mean, ultimately, we're trying to make sure that, our planners' lives are made as easy as possible. And I know that there's still a lot of work that we can do to get them into a, kind of from a, okay, we're sort of happy to, we are very, very happy. I think we're aiming for very, very happy.
Excellent. No, thank you so much. I think we're pretty much out of time. I just wanted to see if any of the panelists wanted to share any final thoughts and views of this webinar, or anything that they've been thinking about during this chat. So I wanted to just leave this last bit open before I thank everyone and close the webinar.
Thanks, Bobby. I guess just on the sustainability note as well, we recently introduced Fusion Cloud Sustainability, which is an application that not only connects to our SCM suite, it actually goes into the invoice and into financials, and customers can actually try this with Excel integration too. So if you're wondering how to start your journey on sustainability, or you're already advanced in your journey for sustainability, we certainly have the start points for you. So please, again, the Help Center will be a great resource for you to get more familiar with it. And last but definitely not least, really thank you, Gabriela, for the amazing insights, the support, and the continued partnership. It's been great, and we're looking forward to engaging further.
Thank you
Thanks
all.
for having me, guys. Appreciate getting a little bit of extra inside scoop on what's happening in Oracle. I'd also just say, for anyone who's kind of considering going on the journey, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or anywhere else. I'm happy to share any of the pitfalls or learnings that we had on more specific topics.
Yeah. Thank you. I think I've seen a question that someone's going through exact scenarios that you're facing, Gabriel. So that offer of help and connecting is going to be very much appreciated. So I think
Anytime.
time's up. Thank you. I wanted to give a really big thanks to Gabriela. Thank you so much for the insights, as Daniel said. I'd love to also thank Dan, Daniel, and Sanjay for their inputs today, and the team at Trinamix that helped with putting this webinar together. But I hope everyone found this really useful, engaging content. We will be sending out this webinar to those who attended for later view, as is being recorded. But all I wish to say is have a good evening, good day, wherever you are in the world. Thanks very much, everyone, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.